Hi, I'm Laura and this is tropetrinitytrilogy, and today I'll be reviewing The Elements of Style 4th edition by William Strunk Jr. and E.B. White. So this is my first craft book review and also probably the first craft book I've read beginning to end. So let's see if this video is any good. I think this book is best described by Charles Osgood, who is quoted on the cover. Still a little book. Small enough and important enough to carry in your pocket as I carry mine. This book is a great succinct summary of all the basic grammar rules, commonly misused words, and basic style advice, written in the shortest way possible. The original edition was written by William Strunk Jr., who is the author of the first 4 chapters in this book. He was a professor of E.B. White, who went on to write the 5th chapter in the book and the introduction in this book. From the foreword to the afterword, this book is a total of 87 pages, and it also has a glossary and index after those. The 5 chapters in this book are called Elementary Rules of Usage, Elementary Principles of Composition, A Few Matters of Form, Words and Expressions Commonly Misused, and the 5th one, written by White, An Approach to Style. So this book is pretty basic rules, so if you're amazing at grammar already, you probably don't need it. The foreword in this book is written by Roger Angell, and the afterword is by Charles Osgood, and both of those serve to humanize the authors a bit more and are very short and casual, like a page of this tiny thing, but you don't actually need to read them. However, I do recommend you read E.B. White's introduction because it does sort of prepare you for William Strunk's sort of small eccentricities, such as he uses the word forcible instead of forceful because he likes it better. He's weird. He also doesn't like the word student body. He absolutely hates it for reasons. And he also explains how though Strunk writes these all as rules,
the code is more what you'd call guidelines than actual rules.
Which it's good that I did read the introduction before the rules, or things like forcible would have confused me and I would have thought that I had to think of these all as rules. I recommend that you do not read this book beginning to end all in one sitting because it's really dry and some of the examples are a bit old. However, the main thing is that it's really dry. So I recommend you read 1 or 2 rules a day or 1 or 2 pages a day so you don't die of boredom. Or you could also skip through the table of contents and pick out what you want to read at the time. So if you want to read about using the active voice or putting statements in positive form, it tells you the exact page of it and you can just read whichever rule you think you need. And obviously the most dated thing about this book though is that it said the modern term nerd is going to become outdated. And it hasn't. Nerd is immortal.
Get those nerds! Nerd! Nerd!
But anyway, I think Strunk's viewpoint on writing is best summed up on page XV with the quote, "Vigorous writing is concise. A sentence should contain no unnecessary words. A paragraph, no unnecessary sentences, for the same reason that a drawing should have no unnecessary lines and a machine no unnecessary parts. This requires not that the writer make all sentences short or avoid all detail and treat subjects only in outline, but that every word tells." So the first 4 chapters by Strunk are pretty basic grammar, form, and word rules, and they're things that you're less likely to want to be creative on because again, he tells you when to use a comma. Why are you not going to follow it? But then when you get to White's chapter 5, those are more like guidelines with things about style and also gentle reminders that are pretty common writing advice, such as save the original draft and don't be afraid to experiment. My only critiques are this book uses weird words like forcible, but it is explained in the intro so I didn't get confused. It's really dry and also tends to use big writing terms such as participle while giving really basic advice such as how to use a comma, which generally I feel like I learned to use a comma before I learned what a participle is. In fact, I kind of forgot what one is already. So my only issue with that is I feel like the vocabulary in this book is higher up then someone who needs this book would be used to reading. The only positive is there is a glossary at the back of the book, so it does help the person learn them, and it could be a good way for them to learn those words while also reading this, because they can flip back and forth. But that's just something to consider. It uses larger words about sentence structure that someone might not know. Hopefully all of them would be in the glossary. I think a couple aren't in the glossary, but I guess you have to use the internet then. But this advice is really basic, such as there's one thing that just says be clear. Someone who would actually need the advice to be clear probably doesn't know what a participle is. I mean, that might not be entirely true. They could also be like one of those really artsy writers who babble on and on like I do in this video. So yeah.
Shut up. I said shut up, you bucket of bolt.
Anyway, here are some of the tips I wrote down, sticky notes, and taped onto my notebook for page 15. Writing to be effective must follow closely the thoughts of the writer, but not necessarily the order in which the thoughts occur. Page 18, Rule 14. Active voice is stronger and often shorter. Page 17. Omit needless words. Page 25, Rule 18. Avoid too many loose sentences, but use them in moderation to vary style. And those sentences tend to use the words and, but, who, which, when, where, and while. Page 77. Only a reliable ear should use bad grammar deliberately. Don't use dialect unless you're devoted to it. And page 32, place words to emphasize at the end or the beginning of a sentence. And then some of the pretty basic style advice that I wrote down is what you are will determine your style, not what you know. Respect readers' intelligence. Don't be patronizing. That's actually a common issue I see. People like making it super simple for people to read. So that's probably something that everything should say. Or they like continually repeat things like 50 times like I do in all my videos, but that's because I forget what I say. I don't remember what I said already. Anyway, page 67. Style is the sound words make on the paper. Reveal something about our spirits. I don't think I really learned much from that quote, but I wrote it down, so I said it to you. Style cannot be detached from prose. Style is the expression of self. Page 70. Don't worry about style. Write in a way that comes naturally. Don't try to imitate, but also don't worry about it. Sometimes impulse and emotion are more compelling than design. And write for yourself. So again, pretty basic advice. I just said it to you because I didn't really know what else to say in this review. So overall, this book is a nice, simple, to-the-point read that if you really struggle with grammar, form, and you don't know what to look up, I recommend. Because, of course, you can always Google grammar advice, but if you don't know what you have an issue with, you won't know what to Google. Especially the things about form in here, which I don't really think about as much, but it's good for me to refresh upon. Though I will admit the style section was pretty basic advice that every author tuber says, so that one didn't help as much as the more grammar and form one, at least for me personally. But yeah, this book has a lot of great rules that I don't always think to look up, which is why it's nice to have it in book form. And it's very straight to the point. The only thing is, don't try to read it from beginning to end all at once, because you will die of boredom. And I recommend that you don't make this your only read and probably read a fiction book at the same time. Unlike me, because I'm obsessive and I can't read two things at once, hence why I never read at college. So I tried to read this without reading another book at the same time, hence why all my library books are going to be late. And I'm filming this video at 5 a.m. the day before the library books are due, or the day of actually, because it's 5 a.m. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna die. Sorry, I went on a tangent. The point is, despite the use of big words with simple concepts, this book is pretty good. This book is a great one-stop shop for all your basic grammar, form, and writing rules.
Guidelines.
Oh, also, if you have any thoughts about what I said, any grammar book recommendations, or you thought this review was completely pointless and you're like, why the heck would I need to watch a review about this, please leave those comments down below. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this book below. Wait a second. Never call a stomach a tummy without reason. outrageous.
I'm so rumbly in my tumbly. Ooh.
I will call stomachs tummies for whatever reason I want, you monster. I can't recommend this disgusting propaganda telling me not to use the word tummy. Die! I just threw it. Okay, but in all seriousness, this is a good grammar book. I recommend you pick it up. And also, I'm really tired, hence why I just had that terrible whatever the heck that was. I'm gonna go. No way, I'm not gonna pass out. I have to review another book, so I'm gonna die. Later!
For something sweet to eat. If only I hadn't. You see what I meant to do? Well, it all comes, I suppose, from liking honey so much. Oh, bother.